Alright, so this video is going to show you how to add the drip effect. It's also going to show you how to add a drop shadow. Let me make sure that this is focusing. Alright, cool. So, how we're going to do this is you basically need to start off with some sort of letter. So let me just give you an example. I'm just going to lightly sketch out the letter E. Okay, and this isn't really graffiti, but you'll get the point here in a second. So what I want to do to this letter is I'm just going to outline it really quick, and I'm going to show you how to add a drop shadow to your letters. Okay, so the letter E, here's what we need to think about. Number one, whenever you have a shadow, you have to have a light, right? So like oftentimes if we're outside and you see your shadow, there's only one light source, and that light source is the sun. Okay, now you can put the sun on this side, you can put the sun over here. A lot of times artists tend to put it in the top left. That's usually where they have their light source come from, but that's totally up to you. So graffiti is a type of design. It's not necessarily like a realistic image, it's actually a creation. So what we can do is we're going to put our light source wherever we would like it to be, and then that's going to reflect where the shadow goes and what direction it goes in. So if the light is up here, the light is shining all over, right? It's shining in all these different directions. Now because the E is on this side of the light, the shadow is actually going to go in the same direction that the light is traveling. Okay? Now what that means is anything on the left side of the letter and on the top of the letter should not have a shadow. Okay, so when you look at this letter, don't look at it as a whole object. Look at it as a bunch of different shapes and different sides. Okay, so here's what I'm trying to get at. The top of the letter should not have a shadow because the light is shining right on top of it. So the shadow is only going to be on the right side of each side and on the bottom side of each side. Okay, so the shadow is only going to be on the right and on the bottom. So here's how this looks. I keep losing focus. I'm not really sure why. That's okay. Alright, so when you take your letter E, you are going to have a shadow underneath the E and to the right of the E. Here's one little thing that you can do to make this a little bit easier. You can take all your corners, okay, every one, and you're going to draw a line in the same direction that the light is traveling. Okay, just a short line. Now every line should be the same length, roughly. Okay, you don't need to measure it. So here's a corner, here's a corner, here's a corner, here's a corner. And I'm going to go and I'm going to do this to all my corners. Then what you can do is, and once you get used to this, you don't have to draw these here, but you're going to erase the ones that go inside your letter. Because there's not going to be a shadow inside of your letter. Alright? Now from here, what you do is you need to attach those lines together. Okay, there's the first one, there's the second one. And what we're basically trying to accomplish is we are trying to add a parallel line to the one above it, or a parallel line to the one next to it. Does that make sense? Now what do we do here? This is kind of the tricky one right in here. How are we going to make this look like a shadow? Do we go from point to corner? No, we don't want to do that. What we want to do is we have to have a parallel line. So we're going to take this edge and we're going to draw a parallel line starting at the end of this mark, and it's going to stop right in there. Okay, so we're going to go right up to here, and I'll show you how that works again. Connect those lines, make it parallel to this one. This is not a 90 degree, this is probably a slight mistake on my end. It's not quite 90 degrees, but that's okay. Then we're going to connect these. So we got parallel lines right here. Same thing as we happened down here. Got to remember, parallel line, so I'm going to start at my point, parallel line to the one next to it. Parallel, parallel. And there's your drop shadow. Okay, so what you could do is you could go in and shade this all in. And it's going to make it look like you have a shadow on your letter. Alright, now what I want to do is just really quick, I want to show you what that will look like with a curved letter. So if you have a curved letter, let's say it's the letter, let's get in focus here. Alright, so let's say we have the letter, it's still a little blurry. Man, I'm not sure why. Okay, let's say we have the letter B. Actually, let's do the letter R. So I'm just going to really quickly sketch out the letter R. Okay, not great, but that'll work. So what we want to do is we need to focus on, first off, where the light is coming from, like we talked about before. Okay, there we go. Fixed it a little bit. So, where is the light coming from? Let's say it's coming from up here again. Okay, if it's coming from over here, you just got to make your shadow go this way. So the shadows, or the light's traveling this direction. So that means the shadow's traveling this direction. So down here, it's the same as before. We could take all our points and draw little lines. Okay, we don't need the ones inside the letter. Alright, now the only other thing is, what we need to do with curved letters is, we're going to have to draw lines more than just where the corners are. Alright, we actually have to draw a line, so imagine the light traveling this way. Where is that light going to catch the edge of the R? So we're going to draw a line right on the edge. We don't want to draw it down here, because that's not where the shadow would start. The shadow is going to start up here. Now, when we go to draw our parallel lines, we know that this line is parallel to the bottom, this line is parallel to the bottom. How about this line in here? See this edge here? Well, since our light's up here and our shadow's traveling this way, we need a shadow on the right side of the letter and on the bottom of the letter. So here's my letter. I need one on the right side. So I take from my point and I'm going to draw a line straight up, and I'm going to make it parallel to this line right here. Okay? Now, here's where it gets a little tricky. I'm going to do the same thing here. What we need to do over here is we need to draw a line that travels on the same path, almost as if it's parallel, except obviously, since it's a curved line, it cannot really be parallel. But we're going to kind of pretend that this is parallel, and we're going to draw a line on the same path. And that's going to be your shadow on the right side of your R. Okay, we're going to do the same thing up here. We're going to draw a line, and it's going to run parallel to the line above it, and it's eventually going to stop. Now, some of you are asking, why isn't there a shadow here? Well, technically, because the light's traveling this direction, you wouldn't really have a shadow here, because this is almost like the top of the letter. Okay, and we don't want anything on the top, and we don't want anything on the left. Alright? Now, when you go to your final draft, and you want to add the drip effect or the drop shadow, I would always recommend a little bit of a drop shadow. Okay? You're going to draw your edges, take all your corners, okay, and you're going to start connecting. This one would go up. Technically, it'd actually go all the way up to there. Why would it go over this? Because this is in front of this one. So if you think about the letter, this part of the letter is actually overlapping this part. Okay, it's just the way that it looks. If you don't go all the way up, it's not a big deal. We need a parallel line down here, parallel line over here, and then this is all going to be on the same path going all the way to here. Because here's my letter. We need one on the bottom and we need it to the right. Make sense? Down here, this probably isn't going to have a shadow. Might start right about there. It's going to run parallel all the way up to here and stop there. We're going to have one little one on the inside. I'm going to come over here and add a little shadow. Remember, we got this one that goes all the way along the track, the top of the W. We'll have a little one underneath. So you notice that I'm not doing the corner thing anymore because I'm starting to get a feel for how this works. And obviously I've been doing this a long time. So there you go. Got another one on the bottom, on the right. And there you go. So there's your drop shadow. Now, some of you are wondering how to do the drip. So a drip effect. Okay. So the drip effect is a flow. You almost have to get a feel for it. What you do is you want to start, imagine that you pour something over top of this letter. It's not going to drip off the sides. It's going to drip off the bottom, right? Because gravity pulls that fluid down towards the floor. So what I want to think about is how can I add drips so that it's dripping off the letter and it's pulling down. Okay, so the drips are going to go in this direction. Alright, so what I want to do, I'm going to do this with a Sharpie. I would highly recommend when you start your drawing, I would do everything in pencil first, and then you can always go over it once you figure out that you've had it and that you've got it correct. Okay, so here's my shadows. I'm going to add the drip effect. Like I said, I'm going to do it in Sharpie because I've been doing this. I've done this multiple times, so I kind of have a good feel for it. So I'm going to start at the bottom of my letter. So I could start right here. And I'm just going to create a wavy line. And that line is going to curve right back up. And it's going to be very natural and fluid. Okay? So what I'm doing is I'm creating a variety of lengths in this drip. So I'm going to curve back up. And I don't want to make it too much of a pattern. But I just want to get some nice flow in here. And I want it to be very random. Now if I want to have the drip go all the way across the bottom, I can do that. Or I could have it stop somewhere. And I could have it pick back up over here. And then I could have it start back up over here. Okay, it's totally up to you. Or you could just have it go all the way across. Cool? So that's the drip effect. Alright, and you can color that in whatever color you'd like. If you are an at-home learner, remember, you do not have to do this in colored pencil because that's not a required supplies for you to have. So it could just be colored, or it could just be a regular pencil or graphite. One other thing I want to show you really quick, if you want to add some sort of flames, okay, a flame is kind of the same thing. So what you do is you draw, and usually flames are above, you draw a curved line. Except this time what you do is you come right back down, so almost at a point. So it's different than the drip. And then you go up, and you can make this as random as you want. And you just want to make sure that you're above your letter. And once you get a good feel for it, you can kind of pick up the speed a little bit, and then you're going to connect it back down to your letter. Okay, so we got flames, we got drip. You do not have to do both. Matter of fact, I wouldn't even recommend necessarily doing both. Those are just examples of how to do that. Okay, so hopefully that helps. Once you get your entire word drawn out, you can go ahead and trace it with a Sharpie if you have a Sharpie at your disposal. We will have some Sharpies in class that some of the kids can use. Like I said, we're going to try to limit the sharing, but once you get that done, you can go ahead and trace that. Once you get your drop shadows how you want it, you can trace your drop shadows. And I like to just fill those in with a Sharpie. If you don't have a Sharpie, you can fill it in with just a really dark value with your pencil. So just shade it in as dark as you can go. Okay, but I want to focus on craftsmanship, which is the neatness. And I just want to make sure that I really take my time. Now, this is going to be your first project. It's probably going to be about 40 product points. And yeah, if you have any questions, obviously feel free to put your questions in the discussion board. Otherwise, you can send me an email, and I look forward to hearing from you and seeing what you guys can do. All right, good luck. Have fun.